Hello and welcome to the channel. The Ariens Deluxe 28 has had one of the longest production runs of any snowblower currently on the market today. It's been 7 years since I've looked at one, so let's revisit it. Let's see what makes this such a popular snow thrower. So let's get started.
Down in the dirt. Been real bad.
So what makes this so popular? Well, first, I think the main reason is it handles heavy, wet snow without clogging. It'll even throw slush. Number two, it's so easy to use. It's balanced very well. Even your spouse can drive this machine. It's a big machine, but it's still very easy to use. Number three, it's all metal. The only plastic pieces on this are the cover for the impeller housing and a little guide for the chute down on the bottom there to keep it from rattling against the metal. Other than that, this machine is all metal. Handles, dash, chute, gears. A lot of companies had switched to poly, mainly because of cost. But Ariens has never done that. Metal lasts, metal's dependable, metal lasts a long, long time. The Deluxe 28 was the first model with the automatic steering, or Ariens calls it the auto turn. The auto turn steering has changed the way we look at snowblowers nowadays. It's very easy to use. In other words, all you have to do is grab the handles and go blow snow. When you want to turn, you just turn with it. You don't have to remember to pull any triggers. It turns very easily because of the differential in it. In other words, with a locked axle, the old solid axle machines, you had to skid a wheel to make it turn. Well, that wasn't so bad if you had a small, lightweight 24-inch machine, but when you're looking at an all-metal 28-inch or 38-inch machine, that was hard to do. The auto turn changed that all. In fact, this machine is so popular that other companies are starting to copy it. The way it handles snow, the size of the drive tires, the automatic steering, going back to all metal, you're seeing that more and more now. So let's look at some specifics. Let's start with the front end. As you walk around to the front end of the machine, one of the first things you'll notice is the skid shoes. The skid shoes on the Ariens Deluxe are wider and thicker than the other brands out there. They're particularly a lot heavier duty than the ones that you find on the $1,000 and less machines. For example, the Troy builds. These shoes last a long, long time, and of course they are reversible. And they're not very expensive to replace them. And by the way, I took these off of the machine just so I could get the machine through the front door and get it into the house. So I'm not going to put them back on as we talk about the machine. Just this morning, I had a reader write in and complain about his Craftsman snowblower. It was brand new. He was out east in that last storm, and he said, "This thing won't blow snow." He says all it wants to do is push the snow in front of it. It wants to ride up, and it only throws this snow about 20 feet. And he said, and then he goes on, "What can I do? What can I do to fix this?" Well, I was blunt. I said to him, what you need to do is you need to take that back to Lowe's and buy the Ariens that was sitting alongside of it. So what makes the Ariens better? Okay, number one, Ariens uses an open flight, or what we call a ribbon auger. This ribbon auger has teeth on it to chew through heavy wet snow, but it also picks the snow up and it aerates it. In other words, it puts air into the snow, which makes it lighter and easier to move through the machine. A few little features that these Ariens have that also helps with your heavy wet snow. Some brands don't have this little kicker right here. Can you see that little piece sticking out? And well, there's another one back here too. Those little kickers keep the snow from sticking to this auger, which helps to move things through faster. Number two, Ariens uses a larger 14-inch impeller. The Craftsman that he had only had a 12-inch. Number three, Ariens uses a cupped impeller. Okay, this auger grabs the snow and it's got a cup on both sides of it and holds the snow a lot better to throw it out of the chute. And lastly, Ariens has more room from the housing back to the impeller itself. What that allows it to do is it allows it to hold more snow back inside the machine so that the impeller can grab it and get it out of there quickly. So he was pretty upset. He spent the same money as he would have on an Ariens, and he got a machine that wouldn't handle snow near as well. Besides handling snow, the front of the Ariens is built a lot tougher to last a lot longer. Number one, you got your cast iron gearbox here, got your brass and hardened steel gears inside of it. There's no seam. Oh, it's dusty. There's no seam here to leak oil. It's called a top load gear case, so it won't leak oil. The auger shafts on the Ariens are much heavier than the ones on the Craftsman, so consequently you can have a much heavier duty shear bolt here. So this shear bolt is designed to protect the gear case, but since the gear case is so heavy duty, everything else is so heavy duty, this is a much stronger shear bolt than what you find on that Craftsman snowblower. If you notice, the Ariens Deluxe does not have any grease zerks up here on the top. The reason for that is that they now use a bushing inside of these that doesn't have to be greased anymore. So if you bust a shear pin, it's going to spin freely. With the older Ariens snow throwers and other models, you have a grease zerk here that you have to grease once a year to make for sure that the augers stay free. Ariens also has a brace up here to hold everything nice and solid so nothing gets wiggling up and down on you. If you look at a lot of the older Craftsmans, they'll start to, you'll hit something hard and you'll put a slight bend in it, or the thing sat for years and you'll get a sag and this whole gear case wants to move up and down. Well, it doesn't take long after that before something fails. Going around and look at the housing a little bit. The housing has got lots of stampings in it, so it's nice and solid. It also is cut out here just a little bit, so it'll cut into the side of a frozen snowbank easier than some of the other ones do. One of the big features that I like about the housing on the Ariens is they're welded in quite a few places, so everything stays nice and stiff. They're not spot welded. And you have this lip here. This lip adds a lot of strength to the housing, and it also makes it much easier to lift up and down when we want to lift up the machine and take a look inside like we did here. What a lot of people forget is that Ariens uses two heavy-duty impeller belts to drive the front end. Everybody else on this size machine only uses one. That means the belts are going to last twice as long and there's a lot less stress on the whole system. One thing I did notice, Ariens now uses a captive bolt here. So when you take your cover off of the belts, you don't lose these nuts. They stay right in the machine. That's kind of nice. The third belt over here is your drive belt for the transmission. That's a horsepower belt. It's a heavy duty belt, so it's going to last. The front two belts, you tighten them up with this pulley. You adjust the tension on the belts back here outside of the machine, back by the handles. You never have to take that cover off to adjust any tension or anything. The belt for the friction disc is a constant pressure. There's tension on that all the time, so you don't need to worry about adjusting it. Just a spring that keeps the tension on it. Ariens wasn't the first to use these tall, narrow tires, but they work really, really well on this Deluxe 28. The taller tire makes it easier to go over stuff like curbs and go up and down a step or two, stuff like that. The narrow tire allows the machine to dig in and gives you quite a bit more traction than a wider tire. If you've used a machine with small, narrow tires, you know that they actually don't have bad traction, but with the smaller tires, the ones that aren't as tall as this one, getting up and down a step or something like that is a real pain. These taller tires are nice. I can actually take and pull this machine up the 4 steps to my front porch without too much effort, just because of the larger tires. Before we talk about the chute itself, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the chute control. A lot of people ask, well, why did they put the chute control out there? And my answer is, I don't know, but it does make sense. Number one, this is a right-hand control machine. So when you're driving and you want to rotate the chute, you take your right hand off. You just reach over and turn the chute. It's a fast chute. It has plenty of torque, so it's very easy to use, and it stays put exactly where you want it to be. What people don't understand with this is that reaching over the dash is not as much of a pain as constantly getting the crank back here caught in your big heavy work clothes. I know there's been many times when I've used other brands that have the crank out here. When I go to turn the machine, the crank gets stuck down here in my clothes. You don't have that with this type of system. It works. And here I go again, trying to use it the wrong way. It works, it's simple, and once you use it a few times, you'll easily get used to it. And Ariens snow cabs, if you decide you want to put a snow cab on this, Ariens snow cabs allow for that. They're set up so that there's plenty of room for you to reach over and use the crank. If you think you want to save a couple dollars and buy one of those universal snow cabs, well, they don't have that feature. The Ariens, all you have to do is you can reach right over here and everything is easy to use. All right, let's take a look at the chute itself. Ariens chutes are big. Lots of room to get snow out. At one time, they were the largest. Some of the other brands are starting to come up to this size now because they realize that to get snow out, you got to have a lot of clearance in here. Big hole down on the bottom, plus it's got a little cutout here to help get more snow out. Some of the other brands are still using a square hole or a small diameter round hole. This one just gets the snow out. This little piece down here, there's no weight on it at all. All that is to help keep the chute in place and so it doesn't rattle metal on metal like the Husqvarnas do. This uses a single deflector like most everybody else is using. There's just a few that are using a double jointed. And it does go down far enough so that you can shoot snow here fairly close to you. One of the things that I like about the Ariens is I like this captive spring here. The spring always works. In other words, it always pulls the chute open for you. It's a big heavy spring. Plus it's got this guide in it here so it doesn't pop out. It doesn't have the hooks on the end of it to rust out over the years. The system is built to last as long as the snowblower itself. And I don't know, can you see it or not? Of course it has the rubber, the piece of rubber in here so that if you do have your chute all the way down, snow won't blow back out here and get in the way. Underneath this gear cover is the crank and a metal gear. And then there's a poly gear that actually makes the turn. So the machine is all metal with a few exceptions. All right, then the holder for the chute, it's heavy duty up here. It's spring loaded, so it's got a little protection. Plus you have this 1-inch steel tube and it's bolted with 2 big bolts down on the bottom. So everything's nice and solid. There's no give at all to this, but yet it's got a little flex to it, so if you hit it with something, you're not going to bust it. Let's move around to the engine. Have you heard of anyone having problems with this 242cc Ariens AX engine? I haven't heard of anybody having any real problems with fuel, carburetors plugging up, bearings going out, stuff like that with this engine. It has proven itself to be a very dependable engine. One of the big features that I do like about this engine in this size and this price range is the fuel shutoff. Having a fuel shutoff on here allows you to turn off the fuel and run the engine until it runs out of fuel. That keeps the fuel out of the carburetor when it's sitting in storage. And with today's fuels, if you leave them out where air can get at them, they'll oxidize and they'll gum up your carburetor and just make a mess for you. If you take and put a fuel stabilizer in your fuel, of course I like Seafoam, but K100 or Stable 360 Performance all work just as well. I usually put that fuel stabilizer right in my storage can instead of trying to mix it when I put fuel in my engine. If you have fuel stabilizer in your gas storage tank, when you put it in here, when you turn off your fuel valve and let the machine run out of fuel, that stabilizer coats everything inside too, which helps prevent oxidation. So all in all, fuel stabilizer and the shutoff valve are one of the secrets to making these engines start for you every time when you go to use them next fall. Of course, the 254cc engine has electric start, got a nice recoil on them. I did hear one guy breaking his recoil rope, and the easiest thing to do is just replace this whole assembly nowadays instead of trying to rewind it and put a new rope on. I like the start-stop rocker switch here. It's easy to see. It's really easy to see if it's on or off. Myself, when I run them out of fuel, I just leave this in the run position. That way I don't forget when I go to start it next fall. They have a throttle built into them underneath the choke here, so you can idle them down if you're going to be sitting at the end of the driveway or something like that. Your primer bulb, of course, make sure you put your finger over that little hole and you prime it so the primer works correctly. It does have a nice sized muffler on it, much bigger than what they used to be. So it is quieter, and with the smaller size engine, this is a nice quiet machine. Oil fill up top, and it's an easy to read dipstick. Oil drain down at the bottom is out the back here, and the tube is long enough so that you can easily drain this if you want to do it yourself. Any other questions on this engine? Like I said, I really haven't heard of anybody having any problems with this engine. It's just been a good, dependable little engine. And the reason why I say little is it's about, the way we used to measure them, it's about an 8-horse machine. So it has plenty of power to handle this snow thrower here in the Midwest. If you live in areas that get a lot more snow than what we do here along Interstate 80-ish, in other words, if you typically get 12 inches a day or much deeper snows a couple times a year, you'll want to move up to an Ariens with a larger motor on it. The larger motor will move snow faster for you, and it'll throw the snow a little further, and it'll handle deeper drifts well. Overall, this machine is a good machine for probably 80% of the people out there. In other words, it'll handle just about any snow that you can get. It'll handle heavy, wet snow and slush better than just about any other machine out there on the market. And it's affordable. It's about the only machine on the market for under $1,200 that has as much capacity and the ability to handle the heavy, wet snows. Now, one little thing while I'm thinking about it. I did have a reader the other day want to know how to change the spark plug. And would you believe there's no video out there on how to change the plug on this engine? Well, the plug is right up here. This boot, you just pull this boot off, and the plug is right behind that. Just use a spark plug wrench, take it out, put it back in again, and then make sure you have your boot on nice and tight. It does take quite a bit to pull these off. It's a tight fit, but you can get it done. All right, let's finish up with the dash. I know when you're standing in Lowe's or someplace else looking at snowblowers, the last thing on your mind is looking at how well the dash is constructed. But do that sometime. Take a look at what the Ariens looks like. In other words, it's all metal down through here. Everything is metal except for these two little plastic cogs that are part of the interlock system. If you look at some of the other brands, everything else is plastic, particularly the interlock system. The whole thing will be plastic. It'll be some big, heavy monstrosity thing down there, or it'll be stuck over here in the corner, again, all plastic. That's why the interlocks don't work on half of those machines after a couple years, because the plastics break or wear out. With the Ariens, it's all metal. Everything's going to last for you. If you do happen to bust one of these dogs here, they're very easy to replace. Little things you didn't know you needed to know. Like the new ceiling fan, continually working on this apartment, getting it ready to make some good bucks on. We're getting there with it. Again, everything's all metal here up on top. The levers are metal. No triggers, of course, so don't have to worry about that. The dash is all metal. The levers come all the way out to the end of the handle itself. That's nice. It gives you a longer fulcrum point. So once you push them down, they're easy to hang on to. They don't want to flip up all the time like they do with some of the other brands. If you'll notice, using a Craftsman, for example, after you've used it for a little while, all of a sudden you notice that it's up about this high. And that's where the fulcrum point is on that machine. With this one having the fulcrum point where it's at, it's real easy to hang on to. It doesn't cause your hands to cramp up if you're an old guy like me. What else you need to know? Like I said when we were looking at the belts, it's very easy to adjust the tension on these. Take and wiggle this. If it's got just a little bit of looseness right now, it's just fine. If it's got a lot of slop, or if you notice that the machine the wheels don't want to turn, all you have to do is adjust this right here, make it probably shorter, to tighten up the tension on the belt, and everything is ready to go. If you have this so it's just loose, and when you go to tighten it, you notice that it stretches about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch. That's all the movement there is in them. That's all you need. Same way over on the auger side, the tension works basically the same way. That way the belt adjustment is always correct for you. You always have the proper tension, so you're not stretching the belt, but you have enough traction so that the belt doesn't slip. All right, what else do you want to know about the machine? Feel free to ask any questions you have about this in the comment section below. As always, if you like videos like this, please like it. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And I will talk to you later. Bye.
Down in the dirt. Been real